Welcome back to the Foil Project, guys. We've got two exciting guests in today. Don't really have so much of a social media presence, I would say, but I think you're going to really enjoy the chat if you listen along. I thought maybe the best way to introduce them would be starting by letting you know that Doni is the guy who sent in a couple messages the other day. And two of those messages also included Julian. So I thought maybe a good way to get to know you guys would be I read out one of the messages and then you talk us through what was happening there and we can kind of get to know you like that. Sound good?
All right.
Sounds good.
Sound good?
Yeah,
Right.
sounds good.
Sweet. So it goes, first time it clicked. I started linking bumps. Julian was cutting in out next to me and we were both screaming as we flew past Swanbourne.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was probably the first time when I realised how to start linking bumps and actually go for a couple of 100 metres at a time. And Julian was a fair bit better than me, and well, still is.
No, it didn't last for long.
And anyway, he was very nice, and he basically taught me, amongst others, to when I got to that point. And he was cutting in and out in order to kind of stay with me because I'd fall off, and he'd cut in and out.
Yeah.
Anyway, eventually I got it, and it started to click. And when I started to go for a few 100 metres at a time and a kilometre and so on and so forth, Julian would swing back in and was just screaming at the top of his voice as we went past Swanee, and that was like the first time when it was just like, oh my God, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I don't know if Julian was as excited to have someone else to do a car drop with, or I was just doing it and he was that genuinely excited. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
I don't know if I remember that exact moment, but I remember lots of kilometres down the coast.
Yeah.
Together, it was pretty awesome. The one I remember might be the other story. Was
Okay.
When you were super excited about that we did one run on a northerly from Woodman Point to.
Super excited. Happens
refinery.
a bit, so
I remember that was like a moment where it all came together for you.
Do you want to talk us through that moment from your perspective and then we can see what Doni wrote? Because I'm pretty sure that is the other story.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there might have been 2 days in a row, and I can't remember which day was which, but there was some, probably like yesterday. I wasn't here yesterday, but I was probably similar, where it was crazy windy, and we went from Woodman Point to the just before the refinery. There's that little car park, and it was so windy that at one point, I think Reedy was there.
Yeah.
It was so windy that at one point I fell off, and it was, when I don't know how windy it must be, like 40 knots when you start to get spray, sort of like a metre or two above the surface.
Yeah.
And when you were sitting down or kneeling, you couldn't see anything, you couldn't see anyone.
Yeah.
And then you'd get up and going, then you could see little heads in the like in the distance popping out of the all the spray. And then I remember we're all sort of coming in and we're all pretty excited. Like, I remember it was the first time that you'd kind of effortlessly, that was my memory of it anyway.
Yeah.
It was
made it all happen.
It was like the first time for me where I actually figured out I could go through bumps, as well as like sit on them, and that was a pretty. My head exploded when I realised that, and it just opened so many doors. And I remember looking across to like Julian and Reedy, and you could only see like maybe 100 metres in front of you type thing.
Yeah, something like
that. But you couldn't see where you were. Like, it was a full wide out, and so it looked almost like a snowscape.
Yeah.
And you'd look across and there was just this figure in the distance. and at that point I was figuring out that I could actually go through them. And so I was going faster and faster, and I got in and I was pretty excited.
Yeah, that's cool. That's super cool. Do you want me to read out what you wrote about it earlier?
Not sure
What do you
if it's better or worse. Go for it.
Here we go. First time I remember being able to go through bumps as well as hold them was in a crazy storm. Couldn't see the sky or more than about 100 metres ahead of me. Looked across to see Reedy and Julian in bumps that looked white like snow with rain hitting the surface so hard.
Yeah.
So that's that day.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Julian, do you want to let us know how you started foiling? Because I think you're probably one of the first people in Perth who started doing it, really.
So before foiling, I was really into kite surfing, just because in summer you can't real like proper surf. So I started kite surfing, and during the summer you were doing downwinders every day, kind of like we are now, but kiting. And it must have been in a winter when you get less consistent wind, and I can't remember if I saw someone in real life or online foiling, and I realized that a foil would let you go in lighter wind. So I bought a I don't know if you ever saw my original kite foil.
It was in the shed.
Yeah, it was it was called a North Speedster. I'll have to I have to show you a photo of it.
Yeah.
And learnt how to kite foil, and then I remember seeing the videos of Kai Lenny surf foiling, and I thought, well, I can do it on the kite. Might be great in the surf.
Yeah.
And then went and rented got a demo Nash set. Nash was called a Thrust medium or large, I think.
Yeah.
From somewhere in Perth, like a kite shop, and took it out to Deep Six. I don't know when this must have been, like 2018 or something.
Yeah.
Maybe earlier, I don't know. And then paddled into a wave, stood up, because I could already do the foiling bit from like I had the balance from the kiting, and then caught one wave and went back to the shop and bought one.
So you got up on the very first wave you paddled into?
I'm pretty sure the first or I couldn't. It took me like 2 years to learn how to pump.
Yeah.
Or ages anyway. But yeah, I got up and went, and then I thought, this is it.
Yeah.
This is worth doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Well, like with your experience of kite foiling, have you seen the new like para wings and that type of thing?
Yeah, I have.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think lots of potential. I remember seeing the crew in Maui online ages ago using the parachute style things, and thinking, if this could go upwind, it could be epic, and it looks like there's something. So I think for me, I don't know if it doesn't seem interesting or like that useful for downwind if you can already paddle. Especially when you have variable conditions, I don't know, you kind of always want to be able to get going when you want to. But certainly for in the waves, I don't do a lot of dinghy in the waves, partly because I know I'll just eventually blow my ding up. It could be awesome, because you can sail back out and then ride in without the wing floating around. It could be awesome. I'd love to try one.
Good alternative to like just as soon as you're up and riding, you can just like pack it away.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, cool. And then Doni, for you, did you start straight in downwind, or was it a different entry?
So I suppose I came more from the surfing side of things, and I've never had a wind sport, so which seems crazy now. Living in Perth, and so I think I actually ran into Julian and Crystal at a wedding, going way back, and they said I had to give it a shot, and at the time I was like, whatever. And then I think Julian...
Did you know them at this point? Just
for a long time, and so we eventually had a bit of a go, and I just was paddling in and taking off prone. I suppose normally getting used to that for a fair while, but I was always pretty keen on heading in the downwind direction. That had the biggest appeal for me. And so I became pretty obsessive with it, and and everyone helped me a lot along the way, and so I went from basically prone to downwind. I think there was maybe a little bit of winging in there.
2 sessions maybe.
But not much. I think once I found downwinding, and once I realised what was involved there, I was right into it. And like I remember speaking to Marcus in the shop, and him saying different things. Like one comment in particular was like, when you start to figure out the bumps, and it's like learning a language. Like things like that, talking like that was pretty foreign to me. So and when it became like a wind sport, and Julian and I would drive down the hill, and no one else would be as excited probably in Perth for a rubbish 15 knot westerly, or southerly, sorry. So it was anyway, since then it's just been a bit of a ride.
And I remember we were going prone foiling at Rottnest, and we drove back one day. And I convinced you to like tow me up and let me go downwind for a little bit. And I remember then
and
afterwards
you cut into it for like half an hour you were cutting, like we couldn't believe it.
Oh yeah,
The angle.
But I remember that you'd then seen that it was possible.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I remember we're coming into the boat harbour and you're like, what about that one there? Is that one? You
Yeah.
know which one's the one to go for? And
Yeah.
you could tell that you were going to
That's
you were
right.
gonna get hooked.
That was, I remember that as well. And yeah, we were driving the boat back and I was pointing out bumps to Julian, like, which ones could you paddle up on?
Yeah.
And I was obviously picking the wrong ones. And he was like, no, more like that one there. And it's gone. You know, like, so yeah, we both, got pretty into it. And yeah, and everyone else, just having people around that could do it for me was probably a big difference for like Julian and Marcus and Reedy and Belly and whoever else. Like I had all those guys around me so I could intensively pester them about what was going on. And I think that's really important to have that and listen to what they say because it's pretty foreign.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really lucky to have that, and yeah, that probably helped me progress a little bit.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, just rewinding a bit back to your early proning days. Do you know what type of gear and like stuff you started on?
Yeah. So I had a Takuma. And it was mostly prone on an 800, I think it was, and then there was a 1210 that was what I stepped down to when I was downwinding for that crazy storm run we were talking about. That's what I was on then, was a 1210.
Yeah.
But I started.
No, you were on a
1300 first.
Is it 1300 or 1900?
I think it was 13.
I think it was 9. Anyway,
Was it that big?
I think so. Yeah.
1900.
Yeah. It was big.
It seems ridiculous now, doesn't it?
My first one was really big, and at the time we were like, this is the best thing ever to learn on because I was getting up and being able to paddle up, and like my brother since took that foil off me, and I've had a go, and it's still really good to learn to paddle up on, but it's pretty remarkable when you drop down the foils, how much effort is involved in pumping some of those old bigger wings to what we've got now. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, cool. One spot I reckon we could jump to now is, Julian, have you been making boards for quite a while? Or is that's a recent activity?
I've got a board at home, right? I put a coat of paint on it, finished it about 10 minutes before Doni picked me up.
Yeah.
So I made it, Belly, who helped Doni make his board, helped.
Maybe just show that board. It's pretty cool. You might also notice that it's got Footstraps on it, which is something we'll talk about later. But
so Belly helped me make a board a few years ago. And I made a prone board earlier this year and just making us up now. Yeah. I'm no expert at it, but it's good fun. It's good when there's no wind, something to do. It's really good.
Cool. One thing I wanted to talk about, Doni, is you've been riding quite a wide board for a while. And that's obviously a bit of a change, the one there.
Yeah.
So
it took a bit of getting used to. But at the same time, I did some runs on it that there was times where I really enjoyed the extra width. Mm-hmm. When we did that really long one down south, I was really stable and I felt really confident and there was heaps of energy, so I could paddle up. So there's kind of, I still think there was benefits, but yeah, now going to this, it's which was only ready kind of a week before I went to Hawaii. Yeah. So I was pretty rattled getting onto it for the first time, and but I'm loving it now, and being able to turn and not clip the rails is a new world. Do you find paddling up is much easier than the wider boards? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is. But I think there's still a tipping point there for people who are learning, where they need to be stable in order to learn all the good stuff as well. Yeah. There's no point in them jumping on a toothpick and just falling off entirely. Yeah. So I don't know if that's like 19 wide or whatever that is. I'm sure others are better placed to comment on it. But now I'm loving that and I'm used to it, and I still feel really confident on it. Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Oh, well, going back to your 100 Ks down south, was it the Cape to Cape trail, pretty much? And you're obviously on the wider board, and what are sort of your experiences with both of you down there?
Yeah. You go.
Yeah. Just walk us through and what happened.
Where'd the idea come from to just send it?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I think maybe
I don't know.
Julian and I went down and did a run in Augusta.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was maybe sort of the start of where you were thinking about doing a massive run like that.
I'd have a fair guess that it was Reedy's idea.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, we probably just thought we'd do a long one, and then why not do the whole thing?
Yeah.
That's probably what happened. But yeah, it was awesome. We'd waited so long to try and get the weather right. Not waited so long, but we'd sort of carefully picked a weekend over summer that looked really good.
Yeah.
And then we got there, and it really wasn't good. It was was sort of because we needed a big window of breeze to do it, and especially for the first bit, if it was southwest, Augusta, it's like straight onshore.
Yeah.
And then we got there, and it was, I don't know if it was still offshore when we got there, but it was glassy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we waited, and sort of left a good hour or two later than we wanted to, and it was probably, I don't know how windy it was, like probably not much more than 5 knots straight onshore.
Yep.
Wow.
So the start was real hard. I don't know I don't think I would have paddled out.
Yeah.
If I was by myself, and I was pretty sort of nervous about it. And Reedy was like, "Nah, we got to at least try, and if we don't make it, it's fine." I thought there was just no way we could do it. It was straight onshore and like glassy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what wings were you taking out?
I
up-spec'd at the last minute.
I wanted to ride a 680, and I'd been for weeks prior sort of getting used to it, and then rode a 770.
Same with you, Doni?
I was on an 850.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, and so was Reedy. And like there's a lot that you don't probably see on the footage, like some funny little things, like when we were trying to paddle up. Like I was last to paddle up initially, I think, or the others waited for me. I actually paddled for a bommy. That's how glassy it was. Like I tried to paddle in off a bommy first, and then I failed.
Oh, right, as in like a little breaking wave.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That was out quite a way.
Yeah.
And so like that's the level of desperation to try and paddle up. And then eventually we all paddled up, and I think we made it like a K, and Crystal could still pick us up, Crystal and Heather. And
can I just get a gauge on what time this was in the afternoon as well? Would this been like 2 p.m. or later?
Oh, maybe 1.
Okay, 1. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
So still plenty of daylight, but you would have wanted to leave much earlier.
Well, by this, it probably took us an hour to go.
Yeah,
like
the
a
first
few
bit
kilometers.
was it.
I almost turned around and called it quits.
Yeah, there was a very funny discussion when we were all seated at that point, when we could have pulled out, because the next stretch there's not many 4-wheel drive tracks in, so we would have had to have, if we failed, we would have had to have walked quite a way with our boards. Yeah. So it was a pretty funny discussion, and in the end I was pretty non-committal, and I was like, it doesn't, either way. And I think Julian and I were talking about we could go in and then go up the coast and have one of the best downwinders of our life, because we knew that the wind was the right direction up there. But you could tell Reedy was pretty keen, and I think he made us vote like, Donnie, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh mate, I don't mind, I'm happy to go either way. He's like, no, I'm asking you what you want to do. And I was like, all right, I'll go ahead. And he was like, okay, that's good, that's one. And you could tell Reedy and then
his leadership was
exceptional.
Yeah, okay.
And I think he's got a lot of like adventure racing background and things like that.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, with his job and everything, so there was no like sitting on the fence. So we all decided we're all in, and the first bit was it. Once we got around the corner, it just got stronger and stronger and bigger and better, and it was just like, we are flying now. And it was so good.
I was completely destroyed though. After the first 2 hours we'd gone, we probably hadn't even gone 20 k's. It was getting better and better, but the part where it was bad was so, I was less fit than I am now at that point, because we'd just been away for so long. I hadn't been foiling. And I spent the next sort of 50 k's just trying to recover.
Just standing there.
Yeah, like I felt a bit unsafe at times, because I thought I'm like so tired and drained that anything could happen. Yeah.
I remember looking across at Julian and going, he's way overfoiled, and I was massively overfoiled as well. But yeah, there was a bit going on towards the end.
So one question I would have is, for doing a big thing like this, what preparation were you doing? Apart from like the training stuff, obviously you guys had been doing lots of downwinders, but like safety things? What was running through your head before you went out and did a mission like this?
I think firstly, before the safety, like we'd done, like Julian and Reedy, like we'd done parts of the coast together, like in smaller goes. We didn't just jump in and go for it. So I think the guys knew, probably more so than me, what we were going to expect at each section, because it was different. It was really different. So yeah, and then obviously the safety side of things was pretty serious.
Well, the main thing was just making sure we, like if we had to pull out, we would know where to, we had Crystal and Heather in the car, which was awesome because it meant that if someone had to bail out and we had phone reception, we could make a call or that was probably the main thing. And then from a like nutrition, hydration standpoint, I'd learn a lot because probably I think when we were at about Redgate, I realised that I hadn't eaten or drunk enough. I thought I'd been eating heaps and drinking heaps, but I hadn't. I was so tired, and then I just held a energy bar in my hand. It took me about an hour to eat it because I was just so exhausted. I like couldn't stomach it. I just ate nibble, and then it just like brought me back to life.
Wow.
So yeah, definitely I thought I was on top of it, but I just needed to do more. But yeah, for preparation, I would definitely do, I reckon next time we do something serious, I'm going to do some cycling.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I get sore knees after just standing up for so long.
It was pretty full on, And should said, we should say, like, we did have flares on us, like EPIRBs. We had obviously a life jacket, and we did take precautions with like looking over. We tried to stagger each other so that we weren't looking into the sun to spot each other.
Okay.
And so we'd look over our right shoulder to pick each other, and generally if one of us got out of sight, we'd stop and regroup and then paddle back up. But yeah, so there's all of that type of thing. Like it's there was definitely some like sketchy moments where, like, I think you hit a cray pot at one point. I dodged one going down a big bump at full speed that really rattled me, like a half submerged one that was all, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. Like there was some moments where it was
what did it feel like to hit a cray pot, to jump in there?
Oh man, it was so bad. It was like 10 Ks in. I was so tired, and we're being pushed towards the shore. Just onshore, and I don't know how close I actually was to the shore, but I'm guessing it was like 100 meters.
You got that close?
Yeah, I was so close.
And
then I just cleaned up. Was when I went through the rope and came down. I had to paddle back up again.
Yeah, that's the worst. Hey, when you're just trying to cut out and then you fall off and you're like, I lost all this.
Yeah, but I think probably the maybe the main, or one of the things I learn anyway for next time is that we sort of had prepared for the worst, as in we'd had so much water and food and stuff, and I just don't think you could do it without that. You know, like if it goes really well, then it's fine. You know, you only need a small amount of food and water, but if it goes wrong, like you have to be really prepared for the worst case scenario. You know, you could go and do 50 Ks and not take any water, or, you know, and 80% of the time you're going to be fine, but then the time you're not is bad, and you're in trouble. And we did one from Rottnest to Perth a while ago as well, where I got really tired and didn't have enough water and food.
That was possibly the worst run ever, the one back.
Before we jump onto that, do you want to just describe like coming in, like the feeling of when you finish the run?
Well
done, Hugh. You've pulled us back on the straight and narrow there.
Yeah, so as we kind of got closer, we sort of, because when we left Augusta, especially after the first hour or two, it was like, there's no way we're making it. It's impossible. You know, we're going at 5 Ks an hour, you know, or 10 Ks an hour average, whatever it was. And then as we when we got to
Cozy Corner, we knew we were in with a chance.
Oh, that's not that far. That's only like 20 Ks down the coast, isn't it?
No, sorry, not Cozy Corner. The what's the next? Contos.
Contos. Okay.
Contos that got big.
It was crazy by then, but still, I didn't know if we were going to actually make it. It wasn't until we got to kind of injured up that was like, right, it's only about 2 hours. No, sorry. When we got to Gracetown, it was sort of like, we're probably about 2 hours from here. 2 hours till sunset. We might be able to just do it.
Yeah.
And then we got to Gracetown, and when we sat down, off the back of South Point,
had another conference.
Yeah, had a little team meeting. And I don't think Reedy had done the numbers in his head about what time of day it was and how far we had to go. Yeah. I think one of us said, like, we're going to make it.
Yeah. I knew
so excited.
I knew at that point we could make it, and I think. Yeah.
Do you remember what time and that was? And
it was an hour before sunset.
Yeah.
And that's about an hour left of foiling from...
no, sorry, that was off the injured up, it must have been. Oh, no.
I think it was more like when we were kind of...
Anyway, we sort of, as we got closer, we realised we'd had like just enough daylight.
Okay.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be close, but we also knew we were going fast at that point, like very quick. Like, so we... Yeah, but coming in was... interesting though, and I wouldn't choose to do it at that amount of light again in those conditions. I think that's probably fair enough. Like, it's
So what location
wasn't our preference to come in Sugarloaf Rock.
Okay.
Well, we wanted to go to the actual tip of the Cape.
Yeah.
To go all the way from one end to the other, but which is with that light, it was.
And with that swell, like coming into a full shore break. With no light I don't know if the girls would have been too impressed.
We wouldn't have made it before the sun went down anyway.
Yeah,
that would have been pretty heavy.
But but anyway, that was all the negative side of things. The amazing feeling of actually choosing to turn and go, and actually go for it and make it to the end, and looking across in that whatever it was, half an hour. At the guys, and we were all quite close at that stage. Like I remember that footage of Reedy bombing down one. That doesn't do it justice. Like that was a big bump, and some of those things were, they were really quite significant. And like I remember thinking of going towards like flat spots to wipe my speed.
Yeah.
Instead of actually normally linking bumps and you're going bump to bump and trying to stay up. This was like I'm exhausted.
I was pulling off the back of every single.
Yeah, like it was big.
Swell. Like it was bigger than anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So even just to jump, like compared to Hawaii, is it bigger than? Okay.
And because we were all way overfoiled. I remember I actually went down one, and I went, I'm not doing that again. That was because we were on such big foils.
Did you
so
clock it on your watch and get like max speeds that you guys were hitting? Or?
Yeah, no. I think we were pushing around like 40. It wasn't like, I'm sure having just foiled 90 kilometers had a bit to do with our mental space.
No. But hitting 40 on like the 850 when you've already foiled 90 kilometers is
your knees are kind of doing
that's pretty wild.
But and then coming in was like unbelievable, all being together, giving each other a hug, and that was a pretty amazing feeling. It was pretty hard to replicate that. Like there was some serious exhaustion. It was pretty surreal.
And Crystal and Heather got some footage along the way, is that right as well?
I don't think awesome. Crystal, Heather really knew what we were in for. So Heather being my wife, but Crystal obviously has done a lot of foiling. So she was probably sheltering Heather from what was really going on and how tight we were cutting it and things. So she got some amazing footage, and I'm sure she now would have liked to have been out there herself.
Well, she's probably going to try at some point, isn't she? By the looks of things.
I hope so.
Yeah, cool.
You too, mate. You're next.
Yeah, I know. Yep. Very keen.
Speaking of like big runs like that, have you got any plans for this season?
We do. Still trying to pull all the plans together, but hoping to do another long one.
Yeah. Nice. Just a quick break from the podcast to talk about a brand new product, and that is Surf Ears 4.0. I've been using the older model of these to protect my ears for a number of years now, but let's talk about why these ones are even better. Surf Ears have re-engineered the core and mesh, improved the toughness and durability whilst using ocean plastics and recycled silicone. Surf Ears now come in 2 different colors and also have a wingless option so that you can get the perfect fit for your ear. If you have experienced any ear pain, I would highly recommend Surf Ears 4.0. Now, let's get back to the episode. Why don't we go to the Rottnest Run then?
The westerly.
Yeah. It should be said before this story that we've done some Rotto runs which have been amazing. So this doesn't paint the Rotto run in fair light.
Yeah.
But this one we took off from Pinky's, and I think it was Belly, Reedy, Julian and I. Mm-hmm. And I had a bit of a mare at the start, was struggling to get up, and then we half lost Julian a bit, and so we called him and then found him. But yeah, basically the breeze died on us and there was a lot of swell and we were all on small boards.
Yeah.
And
I
think you were a bit hungover as well.
Yeah, I can't remember, but that would be a good excuse. But yeah, I had a lot of trouble at the start. I forget what happened, but I just went through a patch where I had trouble getting going just behind the island, and then I just was so exhausted from like a patch of having trouble.
Yeah.
And then
well, I feel like there's that area behind Rottnest where the swell kind of wraps around from both angles and you get this crazy like wash of everything. So
yeah, and then everyone was waiting for me, and then it all becomes worse.
Yeah.
But we were paddling up, I remember, because it was all so messy. At one point we were able to paddle up almost in opposite directions without refraction, so you could paddle up going north or paddle up kind of facing half south and trying to pick which one to attempt was like chopping and changing with each bump.
Wow.
So it was pretty rubbish in terms of a clear direction, and I think we ended up all scattered between like Swanbourne and Deep Six. So
wow.
Yeah, and then I think there's a few people ended up paddling the last kilometre or two like on their stomachs. Like it was just really hard going.
Yeah. I vowed not to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
good westerly tomorrow.
Yeah. But that said, we are all, I'd probably say it's fair to say we're all a fair bit better, and the equipment's probably better and all of that. So I wouldn't rule anything out. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, speaking of equipment, the board behind you, you don't see Footstraps on a downwinding board every day. What's the go there?
Yeah. Well, it might not become a thing, but yeah.
But it probably is going to become a thing. Is that what you're thinking with that statement?
I don't know. I think it probably needs to be put in context with, like, I suppose firstly our conditions, we're really fortunate in Perth. We can paddle up really easily. The bumps are really close together. So that's pushed us towards some pretty silly things because we can paddle up quite easily with the conditions that we've got. So we tend to ride shorter boards, and the paddle, being able to just paddle up at the drop of a hat with a paddle, basically means that you can try anything out there.
Yeah.
And you probably don't get that with a prone run, or like if you were to hand paddle in, it takes much longer, whatever. So that said, if you can get up whenever you want, it leads you to trying things. And I suppose I've been attempting a few airs.
For those listening and can't see the video, we're just playing a video of Doni doing a backflip downwinding off the back of a bump. Pretty crazy.
And yeah, there's certain things I'd like to try and land, but I think I'm quite a way off. Yeah. But I wouldn't mind seeing Hugh on the board and giving it a crack. But yeah, the ability to kind of hit bumps at different angles with straps in and then not have to worry about getting back up is a bit of a game changer, because it just leads you to think in a pretty obscure way as what's possible out there. And I think that's a really exciting space, and I look forward to seeing what people can do.
Yeah. Definitely. Has anyone else, to your knowledge, tried doing straps, or has it just been yourself so far?
Are you the only fool?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. On a downwind board, maybe, probably.
I've seen Kailani do a backflip going downwind on a
but I mean, being in a camp with you and Kailani is not a bad spot to be, I'd say.
Lots of crew in Hawaii use Footstraps, but not for doing airs.
Yeah, and they just have like the front one on, and I think some people think that it helps to paddle up. But what I've found is it's not really a benefit to the paddle up. Like I'm paddling up with my back foot out and then slipping my back foot in. And now that board, the foot straps are in the right position, and I haven't really had the conditions to try things yet. But point being, it's probably to the detriment of everything else. Like sometimes if my foil's not set up correctly or my mast's not in the right position, my like pumping it'll restrict my back leg. So for that reason, I think you have to have everything pretty dialed, and then hopefully some pretty special things can happen.
Yeah, cool.
And you can't like there's no way I can try Donnie's board with straps, because if your stance is slightly different, the whole thing's just completely
yeah.
So it's one of those things you need to spend quite a while getting dialed in before it's really worth it.
And then, like, I pushed it. I flew a bit too close to the sun with Julian, had the 615 on and straps for a normal run down south, and I was exhausted. And I only just managed to paddle up in the end. It took me forever. Julian was waiting for me, and it was apparent that my foot straps were, like, in the slight wrong position. And I ended up paddling in from maybe almost a couple of kilometres. It was probably one of my worst runs.
I thought you were going to get eaten by a shark, didn't you?
I thought I saw something, which was probably in my head, but it was enough to make me start thinking about it. And so it was a long, lonely paddle. Kind of looking over my shoulder, and I was pretty relieved to come in. But point being, pushed it too far with a small foil and straps. And so I think there's a tipping point where you need the right coast, the right conditions, and you just But when it's all there was a few times in Hawaii when I had it all set up, and it was the funnest thing I've ever experienced.
Do you prefer to turn with the straps or without?
I think you can, maybe slightly harder, but you lose the ability to slightly adjust your back foot into a turn or do like some finer movements. So, but I remember Marcus had a go on my other board, and he was really excited because I think from his winging he knew he could really rip a turn with straps in. But generally I think probably turning, I'd probably pull the straps off. But the ability to do both is pretty exciting, like doing a couple of turns and then a different bump hits you from a different angle and you go, well, I can now try an air. Linking things and being expressive out there is probably more the camp that we're in rather than the flatline racing.
I think so.
Tell us about getting laughed at.
Julian, well, come on, you were the same. Julian had the same size board, and the guys were at the start of the races were pretty much like wishing us luck and having a bit of a laugh at this length of our boards. Like, they were kind of like, that's awesome, but like good luck type thing. And in fairness, they were probably right. Like I was last on the line, I think, at Amur, and I lost. Well, we lost minutes, but racing. I don't know. Like I think Kane summed it up really well, where it was like, until you're in it, you're kind of wondering why you're there. And then when you're in it, it's like this hyper focus and to not make a mistake, and it pushes you pretty hard. So there's definitely really good things about it. But I think like we were still doing like 3 runs a day, like the days before the race, because we wanted to maximize our holiday time. Because it's just unbelievable conditions, and we were riding the really small foils and sending back messages to people about the small foils that had, never been paddled up before and stuff, and nobody cared because everyone was in race mode. And but me and Julian we were pretty excited. And Crystal.
Would you just like to talk us through paddling up small foils? Because like most people come into downwinding and they go for the biggest foil possible, and I know you guys are trying to push to some smaller size wings. Are there any tips you'd have for like moving down a size?
Not really, but I think especially when you're learning, it's one of the best things you can do. I remember when I was learning, every time I'd sort of intentionally go down, because every time you'd go down, you'd figure out something that you weren't doing right. So I think it's a really good thing. But tips for doing it, I think probably the main thing is just keep on paddling and don't let it come up too early. So keep bouncing on the surface until you're really sure that you're not going to stall, and then go.
And tips like that probably can be transferred to any size foil as well.
Probably,
so like,
it's not. I think think Marcus would be rolling his eyes around about now, but
well,
I'd probably say match the foil to like the medium-sized bumps out there.
Yeah,
is probably the best thing for like just general people learning or whatever to conditions, because there's no point going down a foil and then paddling the whole way. But that said, we often choose to maybe have the risk of doing that to learn something, and so we're trying to push the smaller foils. And I think like Julian's saying, like not letting the foil come up for longer, because the smaller foil wants to build speed much more and get to a point where it's quick enough to hold it, and so you've got to go for longer and pick potentially a different bump.
Well, and something I've been thinking about, especially, I don't know, over in Hawaii, because there were, everyone wanted to be on a 770 or an 860 or whatever it was, is that
for the races,
the easiest thing to do to get going on a smaller foil is ride a bigger board. But for me, you ride the bigger board, and then you don't get the benefit of the small foil. So I would personally rather upsize the foil and go down a board size. Because for me that feeling's way better. So I think that's also part. I don't know. Maybe that's part of the reason that especially people on longer boards will prefer a bigger wing, because there's not actually that much difference in how it turns because your board's so big.
And the higher average speed, like with the bigger foil, bigger board, you could hold an average speed differently, but the ability to, all right, if you take a minute to paddle up, but you're then on a tiny little foil and a tiny little board, and you can turn in ways you cannot do on the equivalent of a Malibu. So, and I think it does stem a bit from our kind of short, tight bumps here. Whereas we don't have that big drawn out ground swell off Perth anyway, maybe down south. But like that's pushed, I think, us to want to surf more and turn more. And I think it's just, there's great things about both. But I think there was a few times when Julian and I were trying to like push some of the guys onto, like try this, like this would be amazing, like these young fit guys, and it's like you could win on this, But they were pretty hesitant. But anyway, so like we found out some things with the smaller foils where they still had some amazing low end, and that was, I remember Julian, before I even got there, because I got there after Julian and Crystal arrived, he was already messaging me talking about the 600 being a small, or what did you say? It was a low.
I think I told you it was a light wind wing.
Julian was saying it was a light wind wing, and I'd used it in Perth, but that blew my mind. And he was referring to the kind of low end of that foil, as well as the high end. So. And
in context, I meant for in the light wind there, because you've still got swell. In like their light wind is 15 knots, and in 15 knots it was good.
But I suppose what I'm getting to is like, I think, why not? Why not?
Yeah, you got to be a sucker for the pain, though.
You have to be a certain.
If I know especially you'd rather sacrifice 90% of it to get the 10%.
I'd happily paddle in.
You don't want to. I know you don't want to. You don't want to come in and think, I wish I had the smaller one.
There's been runs.
It is silly sometimes.
There's been many runs of just sacrificing a run and paddling in. Like because I've got too small a wing on, and that's not good to learn. But sucks. It's just fortunate. But I want that short period of glory. And like the.
I mean, I think there's something in like downwinding that everyone kind of works really hard for it, and you almost get addicted to that feeling of just trying to push yourself to do something that's like you weren't able to do a month ago or something.
Well, a good example is like Julian and I paddled 500, which is a tow wing. I think we could talk about it. I'm sure it's fine.
We can just wait.
I'm pretty sure Dan was. Anyway.
We can cut it.
Yeah. But so we
just say it again. Just start with, we paddled a really small proto.
Sorry, we paddled a really small prototype out at Hawaii, and Julian and I chopped and changed and swapped gear and paddled for, I don't know, 4 kilometers or something, just for the attempt of paddling up this tow wing.
Yeah.
And then in the end, was lucky enough to, it happened. Like, it paddled up, and like I couldn't engage my legs until the very last minute, because it would collapse.
Yeah.
So I needed like a small bump into a medium bump into like a large groundswell, like this perfect storm of bumps before the heavens opened.
Yeah.
And I was up. And that was, for me, that was probably the highlight of the Hawaii trip.
Yeah.
And that lasted all of, I don't know, 500 meters to a kilometer on foil, until I arrogantly tried to cut out to then join the rest of the guys. And I hit a bump mid bump, and I wiped too much speed, and and I just fell off, and you see my track, and I just had to turn for shore and paddle the whole way in. But I suppose the point of all that is that I wanted that, like, for that one little experience, to know that it was possible. I wanted that, and I don't know that everyone's keen on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
How did it feel for that little bit?
I can't explain it. It wasn't up at speed as well. That's the scariest thing, is that I wasn't actually going as fast as I was on a 615.
Yeah.
It wanted to go much quicker. And so I'd got a big one, and it was comparable to a big one that I'd got on a 615, but it just ate it up. Like it couldn't, it was, it wanted to keep going faster, and I was having to refuse bumps in order to find something quicker. And it was, it was amazing.
So do you think there are conditions where it would
100%.
be lit? Like the down south run, maybe?
Well,
those big bumps you were describing? Or
I think like yesterday, when it was a crazy storm, it needs to be crazy fast. And to be honest, it's probably not going to be worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think I like it.
Nah.
Did you get it up as well,
No.
Julian?
It's
okay. Close.
Like 90% of the time, it's probably not going to be worth it. It's like riding the, I don't know, it's hard to compare foils, but anyway, a slightly smaller foil to a slightly bigger foil. You might be overfoiled for a small percentage of time, but in order for sheer enjoyment to make the whole run, it's probably better to just be overfoiled for a little bit. And that's why I was talking about picking a foil for like a medium-sized bump, realistically. But personally, I just wanted to try it, and it was there to be had.
It was cool to try.
Yeah.
Now you know.
Yeah, but I'll definitely be giving it another shot.
Cool.
So that was your highlight in Hawaii. Have you, Julian?
One of them.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Julian, have you got a few highlights that you can remember?
Yeah, heaps of highlights. Just waking up every day and looking out the trees, look at the palm trees blowing and thinking we're on. No, it was awesome. I mean, look, going from the winter here and the cold to the warm weather and the clear blue water and the no seaweed. I actually hadn't gone back in the water for a sup until 3 days ago, because I was just worried that it was going to be so bad in comparison. But it was awesome to catch up with so many friends over there. And it was really good.
Maybe from there we could talk about, Julian, you did the M2M like quite a few years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay. But probably back then, like, not many people had really heard about doing these runs over in Hawaii. It's blown up pretty quickly. Do you want to maybe compare your experience 2 years ago to this year?
It was actually really similar.
Yeah, okay.
Look, there was still it was only 2 years ago, and there was still a big community over there of downwind foilers. At that point, there were more people there than here. So yeah, it was really similar in that. Yeah, the conditions were obviously really similar. It was like almost an identical group of people. There were just so many more people there for the races.
Yeah.
Everyone's gear was a bit different. I was on a bit of a different board to last time, and the gear's better now, so you can take advantage of it a bit more. But yeah, it's a great place.
Cool.
What were like the comparison in the conditions? Was it pretty similar as well, or was it?
I think when we were there this year, I think it was light compared to what it normally is. I don't think we really got many like windy days.
Yeah.
Where I think last time it was windier, like really windy more often, but it was we were still obviously able to go every day this time around. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, one thing I found really interesting was, like, I spent the first few days quite frustrated because I couldn't figure out how to go as quick as I could here.
Yeah.
And in the end, like, I think what it kind of came down to, not just ability, but also it was like the following swell and the wind, it's kind of like it's all heading in the same direction over there for some of the runs. And there's this massive, like, drawn out kind of ground swell. And so, yeah, you can't, even on the small foils, you might get through it, but inevitably you start going uphill at some point. So you've got to figure out a way of it cutting slightly and surfing, even if it's the bigger ground swells. Whereas here, you're almost, when it's really quick, you're almost cutting across the angle and going again and again and again, and they almost kind of bend in front of you, and you're going cutting the top off them, if you like.
Yeah.
And there's often not that big ground swell, so it was just really different. And I couldn't figure it out, and because the races were coming up, like, as much as I talk about, you know, like, we were there to surf and the races, whatever, like, at that point I wanted to figure out how to go fast and what I should be on, so I didn't make a complete fool of myself. and I remember Ben and Marcus and the guys were just like, just stop fighting it, like, stop trying to go up them and through them. You'll go just as fast by biding your time and, like, cutting around these big mountains. So that was pretty cool, because when that clicked again, it was just like something so different, for me anyway. So that was really enjoyable to figure out how different it was.
And that made a noticeable change.
Yeah. I started to pick up a bit of speed, and
cool.
Yeah, and just have more fun, because it was, instead of pumping up on uphill, it was like, no, just sit there when you're sitting, like, high, and you're almost looking for these, I think Kane was talking about looking for, like, high spots.
Yeah, okay.
Which is pretty strange, because you just feel like you're high in the ocean for a long period of time. You can't necessarily pick up that there's a big groundswell under you, but you're just going from point to point, which was pretty weird.
Yeah. So are people, like, able to overtake these ground sails, or they're going so fast that there's no way you could match their speed?
I think you could hold them for long periods. I don't know if
I don't think it's actually that far. Well,
yeah, it's not actually. Yeah.
Out in the middle of one of the channels, it's really fast. But on the North Shore of Maui, where you do most of where the Maliko run is, it's not actually that fast. Like, there's not really many swells that come by that you can't.
Yeah, I think I got within like 5 seconds of my best kilometre there, like, meaning that I went quicker here than I did there.
Cool.
Which was, anyway, what you were saying, it's not that.
5 seconds is a pretty big difference, actually.
Yeah, like, I couldn't get to that next speed.
Wow.
I think because here you can just go straight through it and keep going.
Yeah, you find yourself, like, looking for, like, over there looking for more, like, where I have to go here now versus out here where you can
it's
sort of
almost like you could get to a certain speed on the big groundswell, but, like, it was really hard to then go that next gear, which I'm sure that the good guys can do.
I think a big difference as well is it's because some of the bigger swells are more defined.
Yeah,
you have to be really careful about, if you're trying to go quick, you have to be really careful about when you get on, but more when you get off, because if you lose a big one at the wrong time, you then just end up in a like a dead patch. Right. I mean, in the dead patch, there will still be small ones that you can ride easily, but if you're trying to go quick, you have to be really careful about going from a big one to the next big one. You know, if you make a mistake and lose a big one, you then lose like 5 seconds straight away. Whereas here, because it's so much more stacked up, if you make a small mistake, you just keep on pumping and go over to the next one. So it's more calculated.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. It's more like technical, I think. Whereas here you can probably just pump as fast as you can downwind, and that's the fastest way to do it. You know, that's oversimplifying it, but it's a bit more technical in other places.
So it's sort of like troughs between these big ground swells, you're saying?
These big flats. Yeah. Like, and I think, like, Jimmy talks about it a lot as well, in that, you can hit your top speed on a 6:15 for a kilometre, But when you make a mistake in that big flat, you're pumping for a minute and he's standing there. You know what I mean? Like he's on a 770 and his average speed is the same as you, because you might get a little bit with the small foil, but then overall his average speed through the flats, basically if you make a mistake you get found out. I think it's getting to a really interesting space where everyone was talking about average speed, but like you need to somehow blend the two, which is where I think like the 600 was pretty exciting, because that was like the first time when I could sit in the flats comfortably if I wanted, and then go if I wanted as well. So that foil could do both, which was like kaboom. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you guys about the races. Do you mind just talking through how you both went? What was it like?
Oh, can I cut in quickly before you start? Yeah. Just also, did you have like an idea before going over there? Like, I want to use this wing in the races.
Yeah.
And then when you got there, you were like, oh shit, maybe not. Maybe you should either go bigger or smaller.
I went bigger, mostly because of the paddle up and the pump in.
Yeah.
If there wasn't those aspects, I probably still would have gone smaller. But I wasn't pumping in a kilometre on a 6:15. But so there was that, and I think, but anyway, I was probably kidding myself that the guys, the good guys, they're amazing. What they can do.
Look, it's almost a whole different sport. Like going fast, you have to be so fit, and the decision making has to be so good. You can't make a mistake. You have to paddle up instantly. You lose 30 seconds on the finish line, in a race that's 10 kilometers, it's over. If you want to be really competitive. So I think the whole thing is you got to be consistent. So especially if you're riding a small board, you then have to upsize foil size or two up from what you would ride if you were just out there having fun. And it's just a whole different game. And then because personally, I don't try and go fast regularly, so I don't actually know like my body's limit, how long I can push at different levels for. So you're sort of conserving thinking, not knowing how hard to push it, or what happens if later on I'm going to have to pump for 10 Ks because there's no wind around an island or something. So it's such a different it's such a different I didn't have the right experience and hadn't put the time in to really do well. So but it's such a great experience. It's great fun, being amongst all the top people in the world and being a part of it, and putting a bit of pressure on yourself to not fall off and make it to the end, and don't take too long to get going. Like it was good fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the races, do you want to just quickly run through if you want to do like highlight, finish, start? I don't know what the well the first one was Paddler-Mua. I was really happy with my race because I don't think I'd ever done a race before where I'd got going you're sort of within, I don't know, 20 or 30 seconds. Not every race I've done I've been back floundering somewhere. So I was really happy that I got going, and then I made it all the way to made the pump all the way in, which I was happy with. Probably should have gone a bigger front wing, but it was good. Made it in one piece.
Yeah, you pumped in on the 680, hey?
Yeah.
That was
I was
pretty. It was a long pump in.
Yeah, cool.
I on the flip side had a mare. Anyway, I was kind of gambling, getting up early, and I think I was probably the last on the line and watched everyone get up. And then I just I fell off on the paddle up, and I think I was a bit nervous, and I just kind of couldn't get up for ages. I think I lost like 3 minutes or something, and then I had to just go, all right, just paddle up now and save a bit of face. And it was kind of better when everyone had gone, and I got up, and then I was like, well, I've got to try something different to what everyone else is doing, because I'm not going to make up the time. And I'd heard Kane talk about the inside line being quite quick, and I don't think I'd done a run on the inside line yet. So anyway, I got up and I just went for it as quick as I could. Started to catch up a bit more. And then I think I dodged 2 turtles mating on the inside in about 2 meters of water. I didn't stack it, but then shortly after, when I got all excited and I could see people that I knew again close, I fell off.
Yeah.
So I had a fall midway through the run.
Inside the reef at the end, or?
Nah, this was still just on the fringe, like
Yeah.
inside. Yeah. Yeah, and I paddled back up, and like someone that anyway, I was pretty disappointed at that point. I wasn't very happy, and but then I did one thing right, and I think I cut through quite early.
Yeah.
And I pumped the whole way in, and I could tell that I got quite a few people in that.
Yeah.
Which actually meant that I didn't come dead last.
Well,
But I think we came like 50th out of 140.
Well, you probably
or
would have come in the top 10 or 15 had you have got going at the start and not fallen off, because when I got to the end, I turned around and I was walking, the finish line was 5 or 10 meters from the shore, and I hit the shore and turned around and you were right there. So you would have done so well.
Yeah.
Had it not been for the mistakes. But probably the main error was we didn't do a practice run. Because it's a much shorter run. It was a pump at the end, and we should have done it before to figure out sort of where we're going. Because I got to the you basically end up inside the reef for the last few kilometers, and I could see the people who'd already gone in, and I could see them all just pumping. I thought, if I go through here, there's no way I can pump, however many kilometers it was to the end.
Yeah.
So I then went back out and all the way around. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pretty disappointed. I was like a little kid who got his toys removed. He wasn't happy, but I'm quite a competitive person growing up with 3 older brothers, so I find it almost better to not be in that situation sometimes. So that was the Amua, and then the M2M. Yeah, we went and looked at it the day before, and it was really light. And we were hoping to use some really small foils, and in the end, I think we all used or borrowed foils as big as we had. Yeah. I was on an 860. Yeah. And and it was amazing. Like the whole build up is unbelievable. The whole event is really, really cool. Just the whole logistics and everything. But you were on I can't remember, 770.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was forecast to be super light wind.
Yeah.
Like almost nothing. And I think the day before in the car park, Kane said, I don't know if it's going to be possible.
Yeah.
He said to me, I was like, oh my God, if he thinks it's not going to be possible, then we're in real trouble.
Yeah. One of the best in the world is questioning his ability. You're going, okay, I might be out of my depth here.
Yeah, so we were I was then, the whole race, I was just waiting for a massive wind shadow behind Molokai. I was preparing to pump for forever. Yeah. But it ended up being awesome.
Yeah, the wind came in.
So it was really good.
It was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and then we got there, and I fell off. I don't know. You basically pump as far as you can, and then none of us could make it to the finish. Yeah. But I made a mistake and came down, and then Doni pumped past me, and I turned around, and Dan was right there. Yeah. So we all sort of the 3 of us converged at the end, and then the girls came in right behind us, and it was awesome. Everyone kind of got there easily, so that was pretty awesome. I
had a pretty funny moment where when I paddled up, there was all the boat wash, and everyone talks about the boat wash and everything, but I was just not having it. I got really frustrated, and I went way wide. Yeah. To the point where I think I saw 1 person or 2 people for the rest of the run. Oh wow. Until I cut in. And so there was this moment where I was pretty well on my own, and I hadn't fallen off, and I thought I kidded myself that I was doing okay. and then I kind of turned for home and cut in. And that section was unbelievable. It should be said, like it was like a conveyor belt, like the bumps as it wrapped around, because you almost aim for a different island, and then like, how am I going to get over there? I hope it does start refracting around. Yeah. And then eventually it did, and it was just like this. I stood there for kilometers at a time, like it was unbelievable. But anyway, got to that point and I cut in, and I'd done an extra couple of kilometers, and everyone was there just going ballistic, like basically pumping past me. And I was like, you fool, like this was a race. And I'd been standing there, and everyone was just they were all there, and like everyone was in front of me.
Wow.
And it was just like, you idiot.
Yeah, probably the most, like, all the guys that win are super, like, crazy impressive athletes and foilers.
Yeah.
But the person I was most impressed by was Dave Cassane. We were sitting around. We were sitting around the pool in the hotel that night.
Yeah.
Just sort of talking about the race, and he said that, and he came in just behind us. I think he was with Dan the whole race, pretty much. They were sort of near each other, and he had an average heart rate of 112 for the whole race, and he was like essentially the same. I think my average heart rate was like 140.
Yeah,
damn.
Mine
and
was up.
I don't know how old Kisser is, but
yeah, he's got a few years on us. That's for
112.
Sure.
You could almost be sleeping with that.
I reckon he probably was the fastest out there for speed to heart rate. Seriously impressive.
I think he used to be a very good Ironman.
Wow.
And,
okay.
and obviously, and Marcus talks about them doing some pretty crazy downwind runs together. But that was pretty impressive.
Wow. That is
when Crystal and Ange came in, it was awesome. We were all kind of shouting and carrying on, and it was an amazing experience to be a part of. Yeah.
Awesome. I guess I wanted to ask you, Julian, just a bit about your trip sailing. Okay. I know that was a pretty big deal. We talked to Crystal about it a bit as well.
All right.
And she, like, one of the moments that I really remember was when she talked about the steering wheel, the auto control steering breaking right at the end of your trip.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's a hairy moment. Do you have another hairy moment? Or
yeah, God, what sort of one to talk about, I guess. Look, most of the hardest thing about the Doni came and visited, so you got glimpses of it, but it's more, the hardest thing about it is just that everything is so inconvenient. Yeah. And there's no escape. So if you're sailing for even just a week at a time, you can't leave, It's not like you have a bad day at work and you just go home and forget about it all. You're sort of stuck there. So it's as much a mental battle as it is anything else. But, look, when we were, probably the scariest moment we had was just after we bought the boat, and we didn't have that much experience when we were in Greece, and we came around. I don't know if Crystal told this story.
Nice.
We came around this headland, and we naively hadn't read the guidebook, and it was a notorious area for wind acceleration around an island, and so we sort of were coming around the corner of this island. There was a cargo ship sort of near us, and the cargo ship went by, and there were guys on the deck waving at us, and we were like, yeah, how good is this? This is great sailing. We were going so fast, and then all of a sudden the wind went from sort of like 15 to 20 to 30 to 40, and I think the strongest we saw was about 47, and it was
knots.
Wild.
That's
knots. And at that point we weren't that experienced, so we didn't really know what to do with it, and it was scary. But we didn't really have things go that wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
We met so many people that had, had rigging failures, or had been flipped upside down, or all sorts of other stuff. So we were we did pretty good.
But you guys are very calculated, and you didn't just do pretty good. Like they're very talented and smart people, and they mitigated every possible risk. So I think,
but an epic adventure.
Yeah.
Crystal said you were interested in something.
I'd love to do something like that someday. I feel like that's a long way down the track.
Yeah.
But,
it was the best decision we ever made. Well, that's the best decision we ever made, I think, was to quit our jobs and go on an adventure.
Yeah, awesome.
Never look back, and the things you learnt, the places you go and the people you meet, and the lessons you learn about yourself and about things in general was pretty special.
Yeah, cool.
And got to go foiling in some exotic places sometimes.
Nice.
Or go downwinding somewhere that probably no one had done it before, or you got to do some interesting things, so it was fun.
One question I was going to ask is, how did you cope with looking out and seeing all those bumps? I know Doni described earlier when you two were coming back from Rottnest, you were pointing out all the good spots. That must have been like that, but never ending.
Yeah, but after a while you just accept your fate.
Yeah.
But when you're sailing for 30 days straight, you just spend a lot of time staring at staring out the back of the boat, watching the swells. But yeah, it's kind of frustrating because you're in amongst it all the time, but it's inaccessible. But yeah, that's all right.
I, for one, am glad that you didn't attempt those downwinders Crystal was talking about when you wanted to get in and she keeps sailing and you just downwind next to the boat.
Yeah, I think I tried for that maybe when we were arriving somewhere, and certainly not in the middle of the ocean though.
Yeah.
But
that certainly could go pretty wrong pretty quick, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, you go overboard, your chances are you're not coming back. So
yeah. Cool.
How good?
I don't know if there's anything else you guys wanted to talk about. I want you to guess, how long have we been going for? Can you see this?
No.
Try guess. It's actually
been a long day. I'm not sure.
It's an hour and 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
We dribbled for that
we
long.
Didn't talk about anything good.
Yeah, we didn't get to all the good bits.
Well, what's the good bits then? We're all ears.
Boards, paddles.
Oh yeah.
Foils, hitting sharks.
We talked about lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
I hope someone finds it.
Keep some stories for next time.
Yeah. These two are like, can you two just shut up?
No, I mean, if you want to just do, is there any like extra things you'd like to say that you think are important, but otherwise? I
don't know. You can probably cut it out. But I was going to say, I think it's at a pretty special place, foiling. I haven't been doing it for very long. But I think I got frustrated with surfing because of the crowds and everything and
the community. Yeah,
people's egos and whatever. It's a different thing. It's not always like that. There's good and bad everywhere. But I just hope that foiling doesn't kind of head in that direction. I think downwinding is always going to be quite a free thing, and it's a big ocean out there and you can only really stuff it up yourself. But I think from a prone side of things, I think it needs to be, people need to be a bit careful and not take off on a carbon fibre knife, I think, as you've put it, and like race across the face, and just keep it fun and wear a leggy, and I just hope that it stays as fun as it is, because I sometimes even now I get a bit frustrated with prone and it's like back to the downwinder. So I don't know, I just don't. I think it's a very special thing. Sometimes it's like, it feels like we shouldn't be doing it. And it's just good to keep in mind.
Yeah, you often feel pretty lucky when you're doing it at some point. Like, man, how is this actually a thing? Like, it's so awesome that you get to do something like this.
Flying fish just flew past my head when I'm on the way to Rottnest. Like, that's pretty strange. I often say to people, like, they're the moments when you try and explain it to someone, and they just think you're talking garbage, and they normally just tune out, and then you just start telling people that you just went for another surf.
I remember I have this weird thing that happens to me every now and then, where I'll be, if I go a couple of days in a row, it'll be like mid-session where I'm kind of going, and I'll like look down and be like, I was doing this exact same thing yesterday and this is so cool, and like as if I got to do this 2 days in a row. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced like where you get that weird flashback and like, whoa, I'm here again. It's sick.
Good deja vu. I often think about it as something that I never thought I'd do, and now I can't imagine living without it, which is pretty strange. I'm very lucky to have everyone kind of kick me into it. I think Julian, Reedy and everyone, not forcing me into it, but there was a bit of like, I didn't know what it was, and very, very fortunate that everyone showed me what the go was.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a pretty good way to finish. Unless you want to add anything, Julian.
No, thanks for having us, and
thanks for coming on.
Stoked you're back, guys. And I'm glad we get to go for a few.
Let's do it
together.
Awesome. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
This podcast was filmed at Studio Scotch. The Foil Project would like to thank the Old Scotch Collegians for their ongoing support and for allowing us to use this facility.